For this month of September, we've been exploring the story of Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden and the fall and original sin. And we've talked about what if we really misinterpreted this story. And so today we have God appearing to kick the humans out of the Garden of Eden because they're disobedient and because they're getting too smart. What kind of a God is that? Do you really, really want to follow a God who is so punitive, who is so threatened, who is so controlling that you can't even be smart around that God? I don't. There's nothing appealing about a God like that. So I want us to take a look and perhaps to reframe again this story as we have done. I want to celebrate, and I believe that God celebrates, that human beings have been created with free will. That we were never meant to be controlled and manipulated and boxed in. That what the point of this spiritual story is that we would start off being nurtured, kind of like being in the Garden of Eden, sheltered and protected and given what we needed because we were seen as beautiful and beloved. And then we would grow. And yes, there would be limits put before us, but as we came to each limit, when we were ready to go over it, it was celebrated as a step of maturing, of evolving, of exercising our free will, which God gave us at creation. I could follow a God who doesn't want us to get in over our head, but wants us step by step to take our place as co-creators, who will help us take our place by giving us challenges and limits that we have to face, not to punish us and control us, but to help us get ready for the responsibilities and the difficulties of the next phase. Remember that story about the monarch butterflies who cocoon themselves? They go from being a worm and then they spin this cocoon and they are in there for a while, and when they're ready, they start to break out of the cocoon. It's a hard struggle to get out of the cocoon. And sometimes people have said, well, I ripped away the cocoon so it was easier. But it was in the practice of working their way out of the cocoon that their wings became strong enough to fly. They needed to do the hard work of getting ready, of releasing themselves, of getting past the cocoon in order to be ready for the next stage. What if what this spiritual story of beginning is about is the evolution of people to become responsible adults who can face whatever the challenges are? See, that's a God I could go for. That's a God who doesn't seem demeaning, but actually wise. Because who of us has not seen someone who has had hardships in their life that have been foisted on them by circumstances when they were too young to handle them? And they broke them. So I want to suggest that we have completely underemphasized this beautiful gift of free will that God has placed in human beings. And that as we become ready to take the next step, we just need to get ourselves out there. So there's a fable I was going to tell the children, but they didn't want to hear it. They had more important things to tell us. So it's the fable that's told by a Jewish rabbi, Rabbi Gelman. It's called The Tomato Plant. Some of you may have heard it. And in this fable, he takes the story of Adam and Eve in the garden, and everything is so beautiful, it's so lush, it's so abundant. They're not quite bored, but they're curious about the world outside the fence that's around the Garden of Eden. And they see a little hole in the fence. And they look out through this little hole. And they see a droopy plant. And they're curious about that because there are no droopy plants in the garden. Everything's so lush. What's going on? And so they start to, every so often, check the crack in the wall so that they can see, how's this little plant doing? And then they get so that they're checking it every day. And one day they go and look at it, and it's really turned brown. And it's dying. They go to God and they say, God, what's happening? And God says, well, the plant is dying. It may even be dead. And they say, well, that's not very good. Can't something be done? God said it needs water, needs care. So Adam and Eve talk amongst themselves, and they say to God, we want to go out of the Garden of Eden. And we want to take care of that little plant. And God says, well, once you go over that threshold, once you leave, you can't come back again. So they talk about it some more. And they say, no, we are ready. And so they leave. God hugs them. And God says, I'll be watching over you. And they go and watch over the plant. And as a wonderful thing happens, the plant is not quite dead. And as they tend it and care for it and water it, they see a green shoot returning. And the plant comes back alive. And they know this is their life's work, to tend to life, to tend to growth. They were ready. Can you think how much energy we have wasted as a Christian movement because we went so negative on God and on human beings? This idea that we're somehow not born as a blessing to grow, but that we're born somehow as sinful. It's a doctrine, I believe, that led us away from the immense, that led us away from believing in ourselves, in a God who watches over us and yearns for us to find our life's calling, to bring life, to mature step by step until we're out in the world giving life. What do you think about what Greta Thunberg said? She wants the adults around her to grow up, be responsible, to look at the consequences. She chastised the world leaders on Monday, just like Maureen said, for failing younger generations by not taking sufficient steps to stop climate change. You have stolen my childhood and my dreams with your empty words, she said. You're failing us. But young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you. See, if we don't take our maturing step by step and learn how to be responsible, learn how to exercise our free will in ways that are life-giving and that tend growth, well, we have, I think, not gone the direction we've been called to go. I believe it is the time for the church, for thinking churches, to let go of the stories that spread doom and gloom and judgment and negativity in the world, and to embrace what I believe is a much more honest telling of the story of our creation. That we were originally blessed and created to be a wonderful co-creator and companion of God. That we were kept safe for a while as we could grow. But that we kept testing our limits and our ability to take responsibility and to be accountable. And as we developed that, instead of God being angry and trying to control us, God said, my free will is working. Look at them. They're doing it just the way I thought. Aren't they beautiful? They're going to go out in the world and they're going to do great things for life and for love. Well, I think that's the way it happened. I think that's the way we need to tell the story. In voices that are loud and clear. And I think our mission is still very much the same. To give life. To co-create with a God of wisdom. A God of love. A God who wants us to live into the full potential of being human beings. I could get behind that. I hope you can. Thank you for listening.